Speaking of guns, what do you agree or disagree with Biden wanting to ban assault weapons?
Do I agree or disagree?
Mm-hmm.
I think all the leaders that's ever tried that before did it for a reason. You look at Nazi Germany, prime example. They took their guns away first, and look what happened. When you take people's ability and power to defend themselves away, there's only one reason why you would want to do that. Sure, you can't go out and I remember Biden saying something about, well, you don't have an F-15. Neither did the Taliban. And they kicked our ass for 20 years. They had an AK and flip-flops.
The Supreme Court keeps Illinois' assault weapons ban in place and in effect. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms, NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And if you like my channel, like my content and what I do here, you can support me with the link in the description box below. Everything is appreciated. But let's talk about this. Now, as we already know, and I have spoken in the past about, Illinois has implemented their assault weapons ban. They called it the Safer Communities Act, which is a joke, knowing that Chicago is one of the leading cities for homicides. But they passed this thing in response to the Highland Park shooting. Now, you see the irony here, what's been going on in Chicago for decades. All of a sudden, it took this one event in Highland Park to cause them to do an assault weapons ban, which has no effect on the crime that's going on in Chicago. It's just bizarre how this works. But what has then happened, immediately lawsuits were filed against it. And a gun store owner filed for an injunction to basically halt the execution of that law until the court cases had gone through the system. And what he was hoping to do was allowed to keep selling the products until he got a ruling from the highest court, which is definitely would have to go all the way there. Now, what happened was originally a first judge, Stephen McGlynn, granted his injunction. Then another judge stepped in, and Frank Easterbrook jumped in and reversed McGlynn's decision. Now, the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, jumped in and was going to they went to the Supreme Court to basically push the injunction. And it seems that the Supreme Court has decided, with no real explanation, because there hasn't been any briefs or anything that come out of this decision, to let us know why they did it or thought went the direction they went. But first, because there's a whole lot going on with the assault weapons ban in Illinois, that is also going. It's Seventh Circuit, if I'm not mistaken, has the case now. But the Illinois Supreme Court is also weighing in on the constitutionality of Illinois' assault weapons ban. But I'm going to play this clip here about the Illinois Supreme Court and what they're up to. So let's go ahead and watch that.
The Illinois Supreme Court is now deciding whether the state's recently enacted assault weapons ban violates certain provisions of the Illinois Constitution. Governor Pritzker signed the bill into law back in January. The Supreme Court is considering putting a temporary hold on the legislation as the court challenges continue. Now, earlier this year, a U.S. district judge temporarily blocked the enforcement of the ban, later overturned by the state circuit court. In today's hearing, the state argues the measure doesn't violate equal protections and can be enforced. And the plaintiffs in the case say this all boils down to one thing.
They all have the fundamental individual right to keep and bear arms. And at its least disputed, they have that fundamental individual right to keep and bear arms in their home for confrontation and self-defense.
Now, one of the parties in this lawsuit called on Justice Amy Coney Barrett to place an injunction to hold the legislation. She says she's evaluating the legislation.
Heard that and you saw that. Now, There's two things going on at the same time. You can see this. There's a lawsuit against the assault weapons ban and also this injunction that has now technically been turned down, which means the law goes into effect. But I want to go ahead and give you context on what the Supreme Court did. Let's go ahead and watch this.
A Naperville gun dealer filed an injunction, hoping to stop enforcement of the new law, but the Supreme Court determined the law will stand, at least for now. Some gun dealers say business is down significantly since January when the state law went into effect. That's one of the reasons gun dealers have been trying to block enforcement of the law and ultimately get it overturned.
The legislature can pass whatever it wants. It's just not going to stand up once it gets into the court.
The wall that used to display assault-style weapons at Maxon Shooter's Supplies is mostly empty. While the Supreme Court decision on the ban remains in effect, the Seventh Circuit Court will hear arguments late next month.
A lot of them are going to go out of business by that time.
Governor J.B. Pritzker says in a statement he is confident the law will stand. The gun lobby has insisted on every legal maneuver to block this law, refusing to acknowledge that lives will be saved by this important piece of legislation. Legal experts predict a decision on appeals could come by late summer or early fall.
Heard that and you saw that. Once again, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I want to come over to here so you can see this here. Once again, here we go. Supreme Court allows Illinois' assault weapons ban to take effect. Illinois' ban will remain in effect while lower courts consider its constitutional status, which is kind of bizarre how they did that. If you think about it in layman's terms, you've got lawsuits against something, but it goes into effect anyway and remains in effect until the lower courts make a decision. Ah, boy. But the U.S. Supreme Court allowed Illinois' ban on assault weapons to take effect temporarily on Wednesday. The ruling allows the Illinois law to remain in effect while lower courts deliberate on its constitutional status. Wednesday's ruling comes after a gun shop owner in Illinois requested an injunction against the ban. The Illinois law bans the sale of new possession of semi-automatic assault weapons. Those who already illegally own such weapons would not have to turn them in. The law also bans the sale of large capacity magazines. The court did not offer an explanation for its Wednesday's decision. There were no noted dissents. So they're saying it was just a straight across the board majority rule. I'd love to know what they were thinking. I would, what their train of thought is on this. But the National Foundation for Gun Rights, a legal group associated with the gun store that requested an injunction, expressed disappointment with Wednesday's ruling. The group remains committed to fighting Illinois' ban. However, quote, any action the Supreme Court would have taken at this point would only have been temporary and not on the merits of the case itself. Clearly, the Supreme Court is watching the issue closely, and we look forward to appealing very soon on the merits if the Seventh Circuit rules against us, as the signs currently point to, said Hannah Hill, Executive Director of NFGR. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit is currently considering the case. The request for an injunction went to Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, and we know all about this. I've done videos on this. Illinois passed the Protect Illinois Communities Act. I thought it was the Safe Communities Act. There may have been another state who called it the Safe Communities Act, but it's okay. January 20th, banning the sale, possession, manufacture, delivery, and importation of assault weapons and large capacity magazines, with exceptions for law enforcement, military members, and certain other professionals with firearm training, which means you're divvying up the Constitution. Why some people can exercise it the way it's supposed to be, and others can't exercise it. It's not how the Constitution works, but the legislation specifically names the AR-15, AK-47 rifles and requires lawful owners of semi-automatic rifles to register their ownership with state police. Now, a number of sheriffs have already come out clearly and said, we're not doing it. Came out flat out, we're not doing it. And Pritzker has basically threatened them. But we're going to see how that plays out. The Seventh Circuit has yet to issue a final ruling on the Illinois law, but its decision is likely to be appealed to the Supreme Court, obviously. But that's good. It just depends on how long it takes the Seventh Circuit to say no, because apparently that's where they're heading. The sooner they say no, the sooner they can file with the Supreme Court. Okay, so I'm going to come out of there. So there it is. So the Illinois assault weapons ban is going to go in effect. It's supposed to be on Wednesday. And we shall see how it plays out. Now, I wonder if they can use as we did in Connecticut, the other platform can now become prevalent in Illinois. I wonder if that's going to flip the switch. It's going to be kind of tough with the arm brace rule the way it is, but obviously they can get around that because they're saying rifles, clearly rifles. Others are not rifles. So I say to the Illinois gun dealers out there, start digging into the other, the other platforms. Start looking at that hard. Okay, if this thing goes into effect, screw them. That's my thought. Screw them. But this is going to be a long fight. But hopefully one of these assault weapons ban cases will go to the Supreme Court and they will hear it. And we'll get a final decision on this nonsense. And that's probably why they're probably dragging these things out, hoping that the court can then be ideologically flipped to get the results they want. I mean, you already had gun groups here in Connecticut wanting the Congress to stack the Supreme Court in their favor. So this isn't about the Constitution or right and wrong. This is just about ideologies. I'm going to talk about that in another video concerning that whole premise and a former president. But not to segue. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time a video goes live. I will see you on the next one. Peace.